I was forcibly bound by a strategy system, requiring me to marry Carmelita Lane within 10 years. Or I would be obliterated. I fawned over Carmelita for 10 years. But on our wedding day, she was having fun with her ex-boyfriend in the dressing room. Just as I was on the brink of death, I suddenly bound with a crazy system. Host. Spear dipped in dung, whoever it stabs, dies. Go for it. Ding. Storyshots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. I am Carmelita Lane's pursuer. After 10 years of fawning, I finally got her to marry me. But when I changed into my clothes, planning to discuss going on stage with her, I heard strange noises coming from the dressing room. I kicked the door open and walked in. Carmelita was wearing the high-priced custom wedding dress I ordered. Passionately entangled with her on-again, off-again ex-boyfriend, Carson Williams. Seeing me arrive, Carmelita could still smile and say to me, "You're here, our wedding is about to start, right?" I felt a vast grassland growing on my head. But thinking of the system's threat, I still gritted my teeth and nodded. Whatever it is, we'll talk after the wedding. After all, the system had given me little time, only 10 minutes left. As long as I could stand on stage with her within those 10 minutes, I would succeed, and it would detach from me. No matter how angry I was, I had to wait until the wedding was over. Carmelita nonchalantly blew me a kiss. "Don't worry, honey, I will definitely marry you. I just wanted to say goodbye to the past. He can have my body, but he can't have my heart." She laughed as she spoke. Carson Williams also gave me a mocking glance, then worked even harder. "You're right, this dog you raised is obedient. Even now, he acts like nothing happened. If it were me, I couldn't stand it." Carmelita giggled, then gave me a mocking look. "After all, he's a lapdog that came to me willingly. For a full 10 years, always at my beck and call, liking me since high school." Her expression was proud, as if she were talking about something worth bragging about. The two of them laughed heartily. As the time drew nearer, my breathing became increasingly difficult. I staggered forward, intending to drag them away, but Carson kicked me away. I fell to the ground, my whole body starting to convulse. But my eyes were still fixed on Carmelita. As long as she could get on stage with me at this moment, I could still survive. "Carmelita, save me." I looked at her pleadingly, hoping she would save me for the sake of our many years of friendship. But the two of them just watched as I fell to the ground. Carson continued to taunt. "Your husband really loves you deeply." Carmelita casually flipped her hair, then put on her pants. She smiled and said, "Of course, he loves me more than anyone in this life." The countdown ended bit by bit. An electric current instantly shot through my head. What followed was a severe headache. But the headache didn't last long. The moment I regained consciousness, I heard a sound of metal clashing in my mind. Then, a young, charming female voice spoke. "Hello, host, I am the crazy system. Upon detection, a strategy system is aiding and abetting, disrupting the normal plot. The main system has sent me to help you. Here I come, everyone out of the way." I breathed a sigh of relief. Without the threat of death, my nerves that had been tense for years finally had a chance to relax. From the moment I was born, this so-called strategy system had been inside my body. It controlled me from a young age, preventing me from interacting with any women. If I did, I would face prolonged electric shocks as punishment. It wasn't until high school that it told me it had detected my female lead. It ordered me to win her over within 10 years and marry her. This person was Carmelita Lane. At that time, Carmelita didn't have a good reputation at our school. She had been in contact with a delinquent outside of school since middle school, and that man was her ex-boyfriend Carson Williams, whom she had just slept with. She bullied classmates and acted arrogantly because of her family background. How could I possibly like someone like her? The system then gave me the most terrifying electric shock I had ever experienced, saying that if I chose to give up, it would kill me directly. Faced with the threat of death, I compromised. I initially tried to win her over using normal means. But the system ordered me not to disobey any of its commands. And its command was for me to become a bottomless sycophant. So, Carmelita seemed to discover an amusing toy. She started to humiliate me in various ways. I endured it all. For so many years, I played my cards terribly under its threats. Will that system come back in the future? I asked, almost trembling. Of course not, I've already destroyed it directly. Don't worry, host, I've got your back. Now, go get him. I received the command and immediately screamed like a madman. I grabbed Carmelita's wedding dress tightly and started tearing it apart. Seeing Carson trying to intervene, I kicked him hard in the groin. He was in such a hurry that he didn't even have time to put on his pants. With one kick, I incapacitated him. He curled up on the ground like a shrimp. Meanwhile, I dragged the disheveled Carmelita outside with a sinister grin. The guests outside had been waiting for a long time. Most of them were Carmelita's relatives. After all, my relatives were very disappointed in me because of my actions over the past few years. Even my parents didn't attend my wedding. I dragged her dress, ignoring her cries, and threw her onto the stage. Then I pointed at her disheveled state and started screaming. "You cheating scumbag, you still want to marry me? Marry your mom, maybe. You think someone like you can enter my family? You can't even get into our fridge. Screw you. I'm going to let everyone see how you were moaning under that idiot just now. You act all innocent in front of me, but secretly you drink and smoke like a pro. Are you a sack to be so good at pretending? You need a reality check. Your brain is so small that even squeezing oil out of it wouldn't yield much." With disheveled hair and bloodshot eyes, I twisted and screamed on stage, turning on the big screen. My system was very efficient. It directly pulled up the surveillance footage from that time. "Host, just so you know, I'll only save this kind of thing once. It's too dirty, and I'll get eye infections." I didn't have time to reply. I just heard gasps from below. Carmelita's parents hurried over to stop me. But I grabbed Carmelita and used her leg as a weapon. After swinging her around, I knocked everyone away. "Get out of my way. Or I'll beat you all too. Watch. All of you, watch." Everyone at the scene trembled as they watched me, completely insane. But when they saw the content of the video, everyone's faces showed an expression of realization. The video looped continuously. Carmelita finally snapped out of her daze. She started to roar. "Jacob Simpson! What are you doing? Let me go." I turned around and glared at her fiercely. "What am I doing? I'm just showing everyone what you really are. What did I do wrong? You talk about saying goodbye to the past, but what do you have to say goodbye to? You two have never stopped since the beginning. In public, you and I are engaged, but in private, you and he are practically living together. If it weren't for your fear of pain, you could have had a bunch of kids by now. Do you really think I know nothing?" The system in my mind went TSK 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 incessantly. "Poor you, the legendary NRT male protagonist. That's enough." I replied to her in my mind, speechless. How is this system so much more lively than that other system? I didn't. Carmelita finally knew fear. She took a few steps back, looking at me with pitiful eyes. She thought I was always unable to refuse her when she looked at me like that. But now, I directly gave her a flying kick. "Damn you, you bitch, take a flying kick." The system cheered and encouraged me in my mind. "Well done, host. Give her another slap." "All right." Encouraged, I wanted to vent all these years of frustration. I straddled her and started slapping her left and right. "You want me to pity you? Dream on. Who do you think you are? Drink some horse urine. You act all high and mighty. Offending me. Your life is uncertain. You really think you're something." Her eyes went blurry from my slaps. Her head swelled up like a pig's head. The expensive fake nose she had done was knocked crooked by me. She lay on the ground helplessly, whimpering. Finally, the people behind me managed to hold me back. I took a breath and whistled at her. "Phew, you thick-skinned brat, I'm exhausted from hitting you. Let's call it a day. We'll see each other again." With that, I straightened my clothes and turned to leave. Am I not afraid of their revenge for going crazy today? Of course not. Who am I? I am the son of the richest man. That sidekick and Carmelita's family company are still relying on our family to survive. If it weren't for my parents thinking that being a sycophant was too disgraceful, how could I live so frugally? When they found out I was going to marry Carmelita, they even threatened to cut ties with me. But it doesn't matter, this is the greatest confidence of being an only child. So when I got home, sure enough, I saw the old couple watching the delayed surveillance footage, beaming with joy. Good, good, as expected of my son, that arrogance from those years is back. Yes, yes. I thought someone had possessed him all these years. Luckily, he hasn't lost his mind to that extent. Wow! Your house is so big. In my mind, the system suddenly exclaimed. Only then did I realize there was another system in my mind. What's your name? Nina Morris. You can call me Nina, she said cheerfully, and I could even imagine her looking around curiously in my mind. Seeing me return, my parents looked at me with eyes saying I had finally grown up. Father patted me on the shoulder. It's good to be back, it's good. Mother wiped her tears. My son has finally come back. I felt a bit guilty. After all, these past 10 years I did a lot of absurd things for Carmelita Lane. Like getting up at 3 in the morning to cook porridge for her. Picking her up when she was out drinking while I had a high fever. Watching her flirt with others, but still rushing to give her a condom. Drinking with her until I had a stomach hemorrhage. These are all things I did over the years. She enjoyed all the good I gave her, while warmly accepting everyone who approached her. You're just my dog, you have to do whatever I tell you to do. People always joked that I was her obedient dog. Over time, she seemed to believe it herself. I can't believe they actually said something so shameless. If it weren't for that system following me, I would have slapped her right then and there. After the wedding incident, I thought they would lay low, at least until I made the first move. But to my utter surprise, they shamelessly came knocking on my door. Today, it was Carmelita Lane and her mom. Her mom is no good either. For years, she's been subtly and overtly asking me for more dowry. She has a brother who's getting married this year. Roughly calculating, over the years, they've taken 4 houses and around $5 million in savings from me. They always thought my family was just moderately wealthy. But when they entered our villa today for the first time, they finally understood how rich my family really is. So, when they looked at me, their greed was unmistakable. Look at the way they're staring at you. No different from how monsters look at Tang Sanzang's flesh. Maybe the difference is those monsters can't look like humans, but they wear human skins. Jacob, I know what happened with Carmelita the other day upset you. But you two have been together for so many years, you can't just break up like that. You see, you hit her, and we didn't pursue it. How about we let this go? If you compensate us with $3 million, no, $8 million is dowry. We'll let you have the wedding again. How about that? Her mom's words were utterly shameless. I almost laughed in anger. Carmelita Lane seemed to have come out of the shadow from that day. At this moment, she still didn't want to believe that I didn't love her anymore. In a condescending tone, she said, "Yes, as long as you compensate me, I'll still marry you. Otherwise, I'll never forgive you for the rest of my life." I looked at her face, which was somewhat repaired but still odd. Completely unsure where she got the confidence to say such things to me. Could it be that your previous bootlicker persona is deeply ingrained? And yesterday's outburst wasn't thorough enough? Nina Morris mused in my mind. This won't do. Our life's goal is to enjoy. Host. Grab their hair. Throw them out. I suddenly felt energized. I stood up and walked toward them. Carmelita Lane flinched in fear when she saw my stance. But she still forced herself to maintain a semblance of dignity and said, "If you dare touch me, I'll never forgive you for the rest of my life. Didn't you always want to marry me? Do you really dare to give up now? I heard you talking in your sleep. Don't think I don't know you have some system bound to you, with the ultimate goal of marrying me. If I don't agree now, you're doomed." She wore a triumphant smile on her face, seemingly confident that I wouldn't dare do anything to her. Seeing me pause, her smile widened. "I can overlook what happened a few days ago. But from now on, if you don't treat me twice as well." Ah! Before she could finish, I grabbed her hair. Like a rag, I threw her out. Along with her mom, I threw them both out. The two of them stood at the door, cursing at me. I ignored them. They probably still don't realize that their family has been surviving on my support all this time. They have no idea what will happen when I withdraw my investment. After all, I know that Carmelita Lane's dad seems to have a severe violent streak. I walked back inside, smirking. I saw my parents looking at me with great concern. What was that system he mentioned? What is it? I briefly explained everything to them. They immediately looked at me with great anxiety. So, what now? Will that new system do anything to you? I was taken aback for a moment. I actually didn't feel that this cute, almost childlike system would do anything to me. After all, compared to the previous electronic mechanical voice, this one is obviously much more human. Of course not, I'm not that kind of person. She seemed to be sticking her tongue out at me. After staying at my parents' house for a few days, I returned to my own villa. This place was originally intended to be the marital home for me and Carmelita Lane. But now, I looked at the decorations in the room and sneered. Then I started calling people to clean up the house. They worked quickly, and within half an hour, everything was tidied up. I comfortably lay in the bathtub, enjoying the rare days when I didn't have to be on call. Suddenly, I remembered something and jumped out of the bathtub. Nina, do you think that woman will come and bother me in the middle of the night? She has the key to this place. What if she hears that I'm back and climbs into bed at midnight, trying to force me to marriage? Quick, show me what they are doing. Nina. In a series of calls from me, Nina Morris finally appeared. She seemed to have been sleeping. A bit groggy, she asked me. What? Ah! She screamed. I was startled. Then I heard a string of garbled speech. I pondered for a moment. Could it be that she was cursing me, but the words were censored? I smacked my lips. The curses were quite dirty. Jacob Simpson. If you dare to call me out while you're bathing again, I'll kill you. The little girl was so angry she was panting. No matter how much I called after that, she wouldn't come out. I felt a bit guilty. I coaxed her in a good-natured way for a long time. She finally condescended to give me a video clip. In the video, Carmelita Lane's whole family was in the living room, looking distressed. After all, they haven't had it easy recently. Without my secret support, several companies that cooperated with them terminated their contracts. After all, there isn't a single decent person in her family. Her dad is incompetent but pretentious. Her mom is greedy but lacks a sense of proportion. Carmelita Lane relied on my background to act arrogantly. In a place like the capital, almost everyone in the upper circles knows my face. They would give me some respect. She actually thought that no one was laughing at her for all the bad things she did because the Lane family was now prosperous. Her brother is even more brainless. With a bit of money, he didn't know how to behave. He bullied others and forced several female students in high school to have abortions. He always thought he was a talent waiting to be recognized. He took the money his family gave him to start a business, but ended up in jail. I found out it was because he was reported for fraud. He just got out of prison a few years ago, and his family introduced him to someone who was in urgent need of money. They were waiting for my bride price to marry him off. But can I give them this money? Of course not. Not only that, but I also need them to return everything they took from me before. So that day, I accepted an interview with the media that had always wanted to interview me and revealed the news that I would officially take over the company. When I appeared on TV, I saw through Nina Morris's surveillance that the whole family was excited, thrilled, and cheering. At this point, they actually thought I could bring them some benefits. The next day, when I went to the company, their whole family was neatly standing downstairs. They formed a circle, eagerly watching me. My bodyguards stepped forward to stop them. Carmelita Lane's dad shouted loudly, spitting everywhere. He waved his rough hands. Jacob Simpson, what are you doing? I am your father-in-law. His voice echoed through the entire street, drawing surprised and disapproving looks from passers-by. Carmelita Lane's mom had a mean look on her face, mocking the people around. With her sharp voice, she shouted, "Look at these rich people, each one colder and more heartless than the last. My daughter married you. Now that you're wealthy, you turn your back on us. You've been deceiving us for years, living off our family, taking advantage of us. Give us money." Carmelita Lane was crying softly, trying to use her vulnerability to garner sympathy from those around her. She pounded the ground, crying out, "How could you treat me like this? What did I ever do to deserve this?" I looked at these people and couldn't help but find it amusing. How could they manage to turn the tables on me without any evidence? Host, Carson Williams is also here. I looked into the crowd and indeed saw that familiar figure. It had been a long time since I last saw him. He had changed a lot. His face was noticeably paler, and he looked gloomy. It seemed my kickback then had really done a number on him. He was practically a eunuch now. Beside him were a few people who looked like reporters, carrying cameras and staring intently at me. After all, The first day of the heir to the richest man taking over and causing such a scandal was too sensational to ignore. Since they weren't afraid of embarrassment, why should I be? After all, over the past 10 years, I had already lost all the face I could. Host, charge forward. I took out the tablet from my bag, pulled up the video I had played at the wedding, and walked a few steps forward, shoving it in the reporters' faces. See it clearly? If not, watch it a few more times. Then I turned to the secretary behind me and said, "This screen isn't big enough. Go, get the biggest screens you can find and loop this video on all of them. Make sure to blur out the necessary parts, or it will get banned. Make sure to highlight who everyone is, and who their parents are. We need every detail clear, got it?" The secretary nodded repeatedly. With financial backing, more than 80% of the electronic screens in the capital started playing this sensational video simultaneously. There were even scrolling captions beside them, detailing every aspect of the affair. Carmelita Lane immediately tried to stop me but was held back by the bodyguards. I had them all under control, waiting downstairs for the videos to go viral online. Since they weren't afraid of losing face, why should I be? After all, I wasn't the main character in the video. The worst that could happen was people mocking me again, saying I got cheated on. So what? I'd been ridiculed for so long already. Was I afraid of such trivial matters? As curious netizens dug deeper, they became famous. The crowd that had gathered around was now watching the news unfold on their phones. To ensure this matter exploded quickly, I told the secretary not to worry about the expenses and to make sure it trended. In just 10 minutes, the headline "Wealthy Family Bride's Shocking Wedding Day Scandal" swept across various platforms, shooting to the top of the trending list. Seeing the pointing and whispering of those around her, Carmelita Lane felt as if she were stripped bare, exposed to everyone. Although the most scandalous parts of the video did show that, she hadn't intended to play out a full-blown affair in front of the entire nation. In the end, her family fled in disgrace. Before leaving, Carmelita gave me a resentful glare, realizing she wouldn't get what she wanted. Carson Williams, looking panicked, tried to escape but was firmly held down by my men. I glanced at Carson, who now had a somewhat androgynous look, and a dark thought crossed my mind. Host, in life, if you have a thought, you should act on it. What are you afraid of? Remember our motto. Better to enjoy yourself to death than to let others off easy. Nina Morris, ever the troublemaker, cheered on the spectacle. I felt she was right. One should live with such fervor, otherwise, life would be too stifling. Especially since I had already been stifled for 10 years. What's wrong with going a bit crazy now? Even my parents wouldn't stop me from going wild. So I said with a smile, "How about this? I want to play a game with you." I took the person to a scarcely populated suburb. This game is called Snow Tiger, Open the Door, I'm Coral Snake. He really had it coming. Among my bodyguards, there are a few with special preferences. They are all tall and burly. Grinning, they surrounded Carson Williams. To be honest, Carson didn't look half bad. Otherwise, Carmelita Lane wouldn't have chosen him as her boyfriend. They have been entangled for so many years. Although Carmelita has been ambiguous with me these past few years, she and Carson have broken up and gotten back together many times. I'm just her backup. I guess in their eyes, I might also be part of their play. Listening to the sounds coming from inside, which were exactly the same as that day with Carmelita Lane, I knew he probably enjoyed this game very much. The Lane family finally realized I was serious. They went home and gave Carmelita a good scolding. Their family is typically patriarchal. If it weren't for me being by her side all these years, pampering her, whether she could live so comfortably at home is another story. So, in just a month, she finally saw her family's true colors. She also finally understood why she could live so comfortably before. Without me, she was nothing. So she came to me, covered in wounds, hoping to earn my sympathy. When Carmelita came, she purposely wore a white dress, a short-sleeved off-shoulder style, deliberately exposing all her scars. But now it's autumn. At first glance, I said directly, "Yo, where did this little fool come from?" Carmelita's face instantly turned red, an expression of extreme embarrassment. She knelt down in front of me. "Jacob, I know I've been wrong all these years. I don't ask for your forgiveness, but please, save me, okay? I don't want to die, boo-hoo. My dad is a demon, he beats me every day. Please save me, okay?" She cried pitifully. But her crooked nose and the face I had slapped swollen hadn't recovered yet. It looked really ridiculous. What, can't you get used to not having me pamper you? Then you might as well lie in a coffin and wait for death, because I think. In that case, your dad probably won't hit you anymore. She took a few steps forward, trying to grab my arm. I swung her away with all my strength. Ah, I knew the immense strength buff I gave you would come in handy, Alajai. Nina's excited voice rang in my mind. I wondered why my strength had increased so much. It turned out she had been helping me all along. I instantly felt invigorated. Watching her crawl backward in panic, her face twisted in fear, I couldn't help but laugh. Oh dear, you can crawl too? I thought you were an invertebrate. Considering you probably have nothing original left on your body now, right? I've really given you too much face these past few years. I directly had my bodyguards throw her out. The Lane family's company was targeted by me for almost a month. It was on the verge of bankruptcy. Various agencies kept investigating their finances and such. Seeing that he was about to be sent to prison, Carmelita's father finally got scared and came to see me alone. But he no longer had his previous arrogant attitude. He humbly asked me what it would take to let them off. I had just lit a cigarette when Nina in my mind stopped me. Put that down. What are you smoking for? Looking for a beating. I almost instinctively extinguished the cigarette. Then I paused for a moment. Of course, I didn't dare say anything to Nina Morris. I could only vent all my anger on Carmelita's father. Too busy smoking to remember to hit you, really sorry about that. It's actually very simple. Since you came to beg me today, I'll give you a straightforward answer. I don't want to see Carmelita Lane ever again. Return everything you took from me, not a penny less, and I'll let bygones be bygones. From now on, take your family and get as far away as possible. Don't let me see you again. After all, here in the capital, my word is law. Your family has embarrassed me so much, and I can still let you stay here. That would be too generous of me. Her father was silent for a long time before finally agreeing. I agree, but you have to promise to let us go. I smiled non-committally. That afternoon, I received a transfer of $30 million in my account. It was almost enough for what I had given. As for the secret support to their family, I didn't plan to pursue it. After all, I never intended to let their family go. Shortly after he made the transfer, he was taken away by the police. Carmelita Lane's good brother was also taken away. The charge was money laundering. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Carmelita Lane's mother suddenly felt the sky had fallen. The family's villa was sealed. All their assets were confiscated. She couldn't even take out much of her jewelry. With no way out, her mother directly forced Carmelita Lane to sell. She personally found a hair salon to start soliciting customers. Shortly after, Carmelita Lane contracted some dirty diseases. Her mother took all the money and fled far away, leaving Carmelita Lane alone. Not long after, she died in the hospital. As for Carson Williams, after I took him to play the game, he seemed to be addicted to this game. But my bodyguards really looked down on this type of person and ignored his requests. Over time, he actually started frequenting various parks. He had a lot of fun there. But soon, the park was reported. He was finally arrested by the police for prostitution. I heard that now in jail, he is loved by all kinds of people every day. He actually seems to be living quite comfortably. It's just that there are too many bosses inside. He's very busy every night. Who would have thought that the homewrecker then would end up like this now? Life is unpredictable, like intestines wrapped in intestines. When I heard about this, I really didn't have the time to pay attention. Because Nina Morris disappeared. From the day Carmelita Lane died, no matter how I called her in my mind, she never responded. My mom saw me either daydreaming or smoking and drinking all day and started introducing me to girlfriends. I didn't refuse any of them. Started a daily routine of blind dates. But every time I saw them, I would subconsciously call out to Nina in my mind. He. Look at her, she's definitely after our family's money. Hey. This little girl looks pretty good. If you don't come out soon, I'm going to try dating her. Nina Morris, where are you? Why do I kind of miss you? After returning home, my mom hurriedly asked me how the girls she introduced were. Let me tell you, we carefully selected them. They are definitely good girls. So what if they care about your money? You have plenty. Girls have to want something from you. I sighed as I sat on the sofa. They're all too gentle and obedient. Even when I hold their hands, they don't scold me. When I smoke, they don't even tell me to put it down. I don't like this kind. My parents exchanged glances, both thinking I was sick. Dad looked at me with a worried expression. Did the system shock you, silly? Why do I feel like you've been acting a bit crazy lately? No, I have to take you to the hospital for a checkup. The two of them hurriedly took me to the hospital for a thorough examination. As a result, several doctors were changed, and all the test results showed no problems. The doctor, encountering my situation for the first time, suggested politely, "How about, you go check the brain department?" The two thought it made sense. They hurriedly took me upstairs to the psychological consultation room. When we arrived, the doctor was busy. A mother with a face full of vicissitudes was holding a pile of examination reports and medical records, crying to the doctor. Doctor, look, what's wrong with my daughter?" The doctor looked at her in confusion. "Ah, are you the girl's parent? What's wrong? Didn't your daughter wake up a few days ago?" The woman wiped away her tears and said, sobbing, "She woke up, but it seems like she can't talk anymore. It's been several days since she woke up, and she hasn't said a word. It's not that she can't make sounds because she talks in her sleep. But as soon as she opens her eyes, she starts zoning out. No matter how much you ask her, she won't say a word. She took out her phone from her pocket. When she sleeps, she talks a lot, but I can't understand any of it. It's all crazy stuff, like charge and things like that. She was in a vegetative state for years, and now that she's finally awake. Why can't my precious daughter speak?" The phone started playing a recording. "Hello, host, I'm the crazy system. After detection, there's a strategy system aiding the enemy, disrupting the normal plot. The main system has sent me to help you. Here I come. Everyone, get out of the way. Host, charge. Host, go. Grab her by the hair and throw her out." The recording was almost finished playing. The woman continued crying. "Look, doctor, she keeps calling out to someone named Host and tells him not to be bullied. That she's got his back." I walked step by step towards that direction. From behind the woman, I saw a delicate-looking, slender woman. The woman looked about 20 years old. Her face was pale, showing signs of recent recovery from a serious illness. She had smooth long hair, and her facial features were quite playful. It was hard to imagine how captivating those big, blank eyes would be when lively. Unconsciously, I walked into the hospital room. The young woman stared straight at me. We were face to face, our eyes meeting. She suddenly smiled. "Host, you actually came to see a psychologist. You're no good. Have you forgotten our motto? Better to enjoy yourself to death than to let others off easy." Amidst her rambling, I went up and hugged her directly. "I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime." Nina Morris was also stunned for a moment, then slowly hugged me back. "I'm back." Looking at the few people behind us, who were dumbfounded. Nina and I held hands tightly. "Dad, Mom, you don't need to set me up on blind dates anymore. This is your future daughter-in-law, Nina Morris. Mom, this is your future son-in-law, Jacob Simpson." We exchanged a smile. "We've actually known each other for quite a while, but nice to meet you for the first time. Please take care."